Welcome to Apple Cottage. This is Sandy Aberly, and I am Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming. Now, for the past few weeks, we've been doing a series called The Women in Our Lives. This is part 4. And I've tried to have you sit back and look at the women that have influenced you. And some of the comments have just been so lovely, of people telling me about their aunts or their sisters or their mom or grandparents. It's just been phenomenal, and it's so important for us to remember people in our lives. Now tonight, it's about my Aunt Marian. My Aunt Marian is also my godmother, which is doubly special. She's 94 years old, and she is a firecracker. I mean, seriously. She is spunky, and I love that about her. Now, she's my dad's sister, and I expect both of them to live another 20 years. I've told my dad this. There isn't any reason. People in our lives live a long time. You might as well set a goal of 20 years. I think it's kind of like a badge of honor. When you get to a certain age, you should be able to just have this lapel pin about you've made it, and you've conquered, and you've gone through all that hardship and sorrow and joy and happiness, and it's just fantastic. When I see older people, it's just like the stories they must be able to tell. Now, my Aunt Marian, she was widowed twice, and she was married to two of the most fantastic men on this planet. What a blessing. She had 4 children. Tragically, she lost one of them. But she's still surrounded with children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. What a legacy. Now, she was a farmer's wife. They lived on a farm in Minnesota, by Long Prairie, Minnesota. It's up by St. Cloud. But she worked outside of the home. So my uncle basically ran the farm, and she worked for Northwest Bell, Ma Bell. Now, for you that are too young and have no idea what Ma Bell is, it's a telephone company. And it used to be shocking that there was one phone in your kitchen, and if you were lucky enough, it had a long cord so you could pull it into another room so people didn't hear your conversation. Of course, a lot of times there was party lines, and so your neighbors heard your conversation, which would tell your parents what you said on the phone. It was crazy. But she worked there and actually retired from Ma Bell. And so now she is a snowbird. She goes down south where my parents go, and so they basically live a few blocks away from each other. And I find that totally cool, that you have siblings that live, close to each other, and you're in your 80s and 90s. I find that awesome. Now, she lived in this farmhouse. Things I remember about the farmhouse. Now, memories can be a funny thing. And sometimes people will say, well, that's not the way that happened. Sometimes my brother says that. Then I have to check with my mom, and I have to say, yeah, see, he didn't know what he was talking about. Sometimes I didn't know what I was talking about. But they had this farmhouse. And I remember the farmhouse, and I remember the big barn. I remember you could squirt the milk into the cat's mouth off the cow. And they had this humongous St. Bernard. This big, huge dog that was slobbering all over the place. It was excellent. But I remember the animals, and mostly I remember the land. And it was so beautiful because Minnesota is gorgeous. It's green and so many lakes and rivers, and I remember fishing for sunfish. Maybe that's not what they're really called, but that's what I remember they were called. But it was a wonderful place to go visit. But I love farms. So, but my Aunt Marian is somebody I can talk to. In fact, I talked to her on the phone the other day. And she's actually watched some of my videos. I find that totally fun that my 94-year-old Aunt Marian is watching my videos. But she's somebody you can talk to and you can tease and you can joke with her. You know, sometimes when people get older, they get kind of grumpy, you know. But I am so blessed that she has the sense of humor. And she has that Minnesota accent that my dad doesn't have. You know, because they grew up in Nebraska, and then when my Aunt Marian got married, they moved to Minnesota. There's all those, you know, my dad's family's German. And there's all those Germans and Dutch and all those people that, and they have a little bit of accent. And every once in a while, I can hear that accent come through. And, you know, it's like, oh, yeah. And I love that. But I'm going to insert some pictures at different times in the video so that you can see my Aunt Marian. She's a lovely woman. And I have been just truly blessed with some fantastic women in my life. Now, I would like you to sit and watch and think about all those women in your lives. Because next week, I'm going to talk about my mom. And that's actually going to be the end of my series. Now, are there other women in my life that really have influenced and affected me? Of course there are. So many women in my life. But I can't hardly do a series that lasts for the next 4 years. But it's really important to pick out those women that really have affected your life, have really shared and influenced you. And my Aunt Marian was one of them. Well, she still is one of them. And I find her a complete blessing to me. And I hope you have someone in your life. I hope you have lots of women in your life that are blessings to you too. So this is Sandy at Apple Cottage. As always, like, subscribe, share with the world. Note, see those jars back there? They're just water jugs. I cut them about 3/4 of the way down, or 3/4 of the way up, so no, I can make a little lid. I didn't cut it all the way around. And inside those are 3 very rare yellow raspberry plants. They came the other day. It was so cold, snowing and blowing, and I thought, oh no, because they overnighted them to me. But I just let them warm up a little bit, then I planted them, and it's kind of like a greenhouse because the lid's on there and there's only that little bit of air space. And the leaves just perked right back up. It's going to be fabulous. Anyway, this is Sandy. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. And next week, I'm going to talk about my mom, and that'll be the last of my series. Thanks.